Welcome to World Business. Now, the handmade British sports car manufacturer Morgan launched a brand new sustainable supercar this week. The super sport model has attracted the attention of driving enthusiasts and government officials due to the painstaking efforts the company has gone to ensure the car can be made in a sustainable way. But unlike many recent new car launches, this one does not have an electric engine. Well, I'm delighted to be able to speak to Morgan's Managing Director, Matthew Hole, who joins us now from the firm's iconic Malvern HQ in the UK. Mr. Hole, thank you for speaking to A News. An exciting week for you and your team then. Tell us about this new car.
Thanks for having me on. Today we're launching the Super Sport, which is our new flagship model. It's the first flagship that we've launched in 25 years. And for us, it signifies a big change for Morgan. So this is a vehicle that we'll have on sale throughout the world. And it includes technology that allows the car to be used in all climates, but also 365 days of the year. So it's a marked change for Morgan. And it's a car that we hope will allow us kind of global growth.
Well, talking of those customers around the world, we know that to some degree the Britishness of the brand is a unique selling point. But what do your customers want, and who actually are they? Presumably not all retired diplomats or financial advisors. Is there such a thing as a typical Morgan buyer?
Well, I'm not sure there's a typical Morgan customer as such. However, all our owners and all our customers have some significant traits that are similar. So they all love hand-built craftsmanship. They all love kind of that luxury element, the luxury experience of buying a Morgan and being able to tailor a vehicle to suit their personalities. And also, they just love cars and they love driving cars. And that's at the heart, basically, of what we do. We're trying to make lightweight cars that drive beautifully and create a really immersive ownership experience.
Now, let's talk about the green credentials of this new car. Sustainable, but not electric.
So the way we approach sustainability is to look at it across the entire business and across the entire kind of development landscape of a vehicle. So when we look at the materials that we're using, we sustainably source our ash wood that we use in the frame from our own forest. We have aluminium that is extremely heavily recycled, so 60% recycled content in the aluminium, which is some of the highest that you'll find in any car in production across the world. And when you look at the way we build our cars, we don't use large tools, lots of high power within our factory. We joke that we're powered by Weetabix. So really, our cars are handcrafted and hand built. And so that, sustainably, the car is by design and by its manufacturing process, low energy. So it's a low energy consumption vehicle in manufacture, but also it's an incredibly low emission engine that we use. So really closing the circle, it becomes an incredibly sustainable package altogether.
And where are you seeing the key areas of growth outside of the UK?
So outside the UK and Europe, which have predominantly been our strongest markets, the last year we've seen real growth in Japan, also out in Indonesia. And at the end of last year, we were homologated for the +4 in the USA, and that has been kind of our biggest growth market. So that's in the first couple of months, we've had an incredibly strong order book in the USA. We're also seeing considerable growth across the Middle East. So that with our Midsummer, which is our most recent model, that went very well across the Middle East.
Okay, let's look forward now. What should we be looking out for from Morgan over the next 12 to 24 months?
So I think what we'll see over the next 12, 24 months is the completion of our Midsummer builds, but what we'll see is some real excitement around the Super Sport. There'll be some potential variants of the Super Sport in future, but also just getting them out into the market, showing off the characters of the cars. The designs that the customers have come up with themselves. These are very much tailored, bespoke cars, and we'll see them popping up in some new markets across the globe.
Matthew Hole, Managing Director of Morgan, many thanks for taking the time to be with us on World Business. Now to the Chinese elevator company Koyo. They've been expanding into the South Caucasus region, capitalizing on the increasing interest and investment in commercial and residential property markets in countries including Azerbaijan. I caught up with the firm's CEO on his recent visit to Baku. Mr. Wang, thank you very much for talking to us on A News. Now, the elevator market is fascinating. We were talking off camera about it's a market that involves our daily lives, and yet we perhaps don't hear too much about it in the news. It's forecast to grow 6, 7, 8%, depending on who you listen to, over the next few years. What's driving that growth in this market?
Well, as you said, the equipment itself is its nature is not really exposed to the media or the peoples. It has really low, we would call it recognition by people. Normal people don't really realize they have an elevator when it's broke down.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's quite essential with anything that over 2 floors. You pretty much need something like that if you care about the accessibilities of the handicaps people, or make life just easier. We're looking into the developments, which is the world is actually population is growing, and that's the main fundamental drive of such an increase. Even though there is countries, well, the world is actually in different countries. We're looking into we call it multipolar world or some sort. But the main drive is population growth and then urbanization. And the last thing will be some sort of economic development. And to the world, there's the overall, we call it the overall economic conditions through countries and continents. But there's a local small climates of such a thing. Could be driven by policies, could be driven by different things. For example, minings. For example, Indonesia, they stopped with the materials, the raw materials export. So what that means is bringing a lot of the processing companies comes in, and these are the big companies with thousands of employment. And then in turn, the people come from the countryside to live in compounded places, and where that's basically developing a kind of a new city. And then you have the service sectors come in to compensate of the working force. And that's how the city has been built. And that's what we're looking into the areas. And those areas, I think, is beneficial from the energy trade and also a healthy, we call it a population structure. The younger guys is more than the older ones, like us. We are facing this sort of thing in China, where the growth rate is not as attractive. But we're going into another thing, we call it interchangeable equipments. When the equipments come into a certain age, they are designed for, let's say, 20 years or so. You need to upgrade, you need to modernize it, you need to change it altogether. So that's, we have a fast developed in the past 20 years. And those 20 years is basically where the buildings built, the same with the equipment. And now they're up to date year in year. It's rolling.
Now, there's a fascinating, well-established relationship between China and this part of the world, the Middle Corridor, as it's called. It's very interesting that a company like Koyo should come from China and start to build partnerships in Azerbaijan and in countries in this region. Tell us a little bit more about the strategy and about the importance of those partnerships to the organisation.
Well, we've been operating in 128 countries. Well, sorry, our equipment has been putting in, and we have some sub-offices in the bigger continents. Over here is I think we started it about 80 years ago in this Central Asia region, right to the Middle East. We have the awareness of this region a long time ago. It used to be the trade road, the Silk Road. It's always been trading. And either as I said, as a lift company, we're looking into the areas where the population is growing, the urbanization is going on, and also at least something is planned, and then the economics of things. So this is very important, not only here, but it stretches from here to the borders of China. And all those countries are very promising in terms of what we call it, the three factors of the business development.
And looking to the future, I mean, elevator technology is already very advanced. Mm-hmm. Where is it going next? What will the experience for the user look and feel like in the next 10 or 20 years ahead?
I think we have a lot of R&D going on in terms of two aspects. One is how to make it more flexible in terms of compact to fit in the buildings. But we're limited by the infrastructures of the building style. They go up and down. I think there's some breakthrough of the equipment that go in sideways as well. But again, not fully adapted or widely adapted by the developers. And the second one is trying to make it more connectable by putting on the, we call it IoT, Internet of Things. You're trying to make it smarter, what they say. The vehicles are doing that a long time ago. They told you where, how it performs, and now the vehicles can drive themselves. But lifts is not so much on the same level yet. But I think I see the trend, and I think that's the way it is. So we call it preventative maintenance. And before, basically the lift stops, everybody was angry, and they pick up the phone, calling the management team, and then calling the maintenance team and come in to fix it. But right now, once we have those datas from a distance, then we can check and then we pre-check what is going on and what things easier to be wear out. There are sensors inside, checking the vibrations and all the things from the circuit board, and feeding that information to us, and then we can see and prevent that happening before. And then also the safety aspect of it is, if we remember in the past, early stages, the lifts or elevators were operating. There's an operator inside, yeah, and usually these guys are professionals. But now we dial it down to everybody person use. But the way they use it is just, we try as safe as we can, but it's still a moving equipment, and accidents happen sometimes tragically. Most of the time due to two things. One is the maintenance error. Second is basically the operators, which is our passengers, are doing weird stuff or whatever stuff they wanted to do. We need more of the sensors that are trying to catch that. For example, with new technologies, let's say batteries of electric bikes, they could be unstable with certain movements. And if they push into the lifts, and if you catch fire, then the lift became a furnace. We have to develop some sort of a motion detections to see other objects. Also, we have the times where the dog would just run away with the leash, but the leash is tied with the owner's hands. Mm-hmm. And when the dog, basically the safety issue is there's a light curtains which shooting infrared beams to another, and if something blocked it, and the door will not close. But with a leash, there's a thin line, and basically on the lower floors. Mm-hmm. So when the dogs run out or run in, the lift will not detect, and some accident like that happening. But we were trying to eliminate all the possibilities to make it more safe. So that's the two ways what I might think. One is it requires a bit of a change in the construction or design thing. The other is from the lift companies are trying to make it more clever. and more safe.
Well, fascinating, safer, more sophisticated, sometimes even going sideways. Really interesting future ahead for your sector. Mr. Wang, thank you very much for joining us on
Pleasure.
A-News.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that is all we have time for on this week's programme. Do check out anews.tv for all your very latest business news, and join us again next week for more World Business.